It's Grass Center Right Thought. Welcome to the School of Marvelous Light. The purpose of our life here, as the little flock, as the children of the Most High, is to learn how to forgive. If you think about the Lord's Prayer, one of the most overlooked lines in that prayer is when Yahushua says, "Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." He didn't say a lot in that prayer, but he made sure to say that. And in his ultimate act of sacrifice, he uttered those very words. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Forgive. That's your job, little flock. That's why you suffer the injustices that you suffer. It's so that you learn how to forgive. It's so that you can understand how Abba has treated you. And maybe it will take you to see all of your sin before the Father to understand just how often you've been forgiven. And once you know you've been forgiven, time after time after time, a limitless amount of times, the Father has forgiven you. Once you know that within yourself, then you in turn give that to your neighbor. That same measure of grace that has been afforded to you. And all of you little flock are alive today due to Abba's grace on your life. Not because of anything that you've done. The word was clear that no man's going to boast. He's not going to be able to, because he has no control over life. He would like to think that he does, but he doesn't. His story is already written. And because of that, us of the truth, we know to submit. Submit to the author and the finisher of our faith. And we no longer walk by sight and how things look, because that's what had us bitter, was how it looked, the way we were being treated, the way it sounded to us, the way it looked to us. But we learned to no longer judge like that. And we learned to understand that if somebody's doing something harmful, then they must not understand the commandments yet. And that's all that it is, because if a person understood the commandment, the golden rule, if he understood it and kept it, then he wouldn't do any injustice. He wouldn't do any wrong, because he would understand that he was bringing that upon his own self. He'd know that. And so we see that in order to enter into your glory, the final thing you must do at the end of all of your mistreatment and all the injustice that you suffer, which we're going to prove here in a second, that you must forgive. That's all there is left for you to do in the end, so that you may find the forgiveness when you stand before the Father that you're looking for. We'll use Joseph and we'll use Yahushua as our examples to make this point. Joseph suffered unjustly. That's the point. He didn't just suffer. He suffered unjustly at the hands of his brothers first, the people who were supposed to love him, to give him brotherly love, to extend the commandments to one another. He was betrayed. He was cast out. He was hated. And then when he continued on in life, he was lied on and accused of sexual assault when he had not done so. But he was accused of it and imprisoned on that charge, false charges. So these are injustices and iniquity that should cause Joseph to be bitter and angry and hateful and vengeful, correct. But what do we see? Joseph, his moment of glory. What did we see in it? Was his forgiveness when he stood there and his brothers came humbly asking him for help, not knowing that it was Joseph. And so it will be with you. You will be so transformed. The people that thought you were dead, like his brothers thought about him, that's what people think about you in your life. When you've been translated out of it and called out of it, that's what Abba was doing with Joseph, was calling Joseph unto himself. And he was being purified in the furnace of affliction, because that's where acceptable men are made. There is no other way to become acceptable to the Father except through that crucible, through that fiery furnace of affliction, to try you, to see if you really are what you are. Because in the end, when everything's purified off of you, what is true will be exposed. That's what the furnace of affliction is designed to do. Because when you put gold in the furnace at first, it has a lot of other things in it that make it impure. But when it's purified, now you have actual gold. It was gold all along, but it wasn't pure gold. And the same is with you. You were a spirit all along, but you weren't a pure spirit. You had to have your garments washed and cleaned and purified and baptized in the teachings of Christ. You see? Which is the wine that we drink and the bread that we eat. It's Christ's words, the words of Abba Yah and their perfection, without a spot or a blemish in them. Trustworthy words, faithful words, and true. You see? And once you learn to submit to that, then you're no longer offended at what people are doing. When they do offensive things to you, your ideal about what's happening to you is, how do I bring this person to the knowledge of the truth of what they're doing harmlessly? How can I be wise as a serpent to bring this to their attention, what they're doing to themselves, but harmlessly, so that they don't turn and rend me and they don't notice that's what I'm doing? You see? Instead of rendering evil for evil, somebody throws some dirt at you, you want to throw dirt back. Well, that doesn't actually profit you or that person. It just keeps the cycle going. And that's the world that we've all been living in. A world of this cycle of back and forth. You throw something at me, I'm going to throw something at you. And that's where wars come from. There's always some excuse, they say, to go to war. Well, there wouldn't be an excuse if you would render good for evil. It's not hard, but you're judging your brothers less than you. It's all that it is. You judge their deaths as less valuable than the deaths of your own people, as though you're somehow separate, when all men are all doing the same things. And y'all have all heard it said that it is self-evident that all men are equal. Well, if that's true, then why go to war? Why fight one another? Why not render good for evil? Why not try it by faith and see if it works? His ways are indeed higher than man's ways. So man's ways are insane. And man has been doing the same thing, hoping for a different result. You try war and you're hoping for peace, but you try war to make peace. War doesn't make peace. War makes war. Only like can make like, man. You have two humans come together to make a child. They're only going to make a human child. They're not going to make a dog or a cat. And so it is with the cat and the dog. So we see that Joseph suffered injustice and he was called upon to forgive, and he wept and he had to hide himself for a moment and say, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe they're here asking me for help. And I have to feed them and clothe them and provide housing for them and give them some land. I'm in the position to do that. This is beyond what I could imagine. Well, that's what Abba says he has in store for us. All we have to do is forgive. All we have to do is pass the test. Pass through the fiery furnace of affliction to try you and see if you are what Abba created. Because that's all Satan is trying to see. Ask Job. See? Same thing. That's why the scripture says, remember the end of Job, that Abba is very tender and merciful, and that the end is better than the beginning of Job. So shall it be with you, just like it was with Joseph. You see? Joseph is the black sheep of the family. He stood out, and he wore the coat of many colors. You see? Just like you're wearing, which is your aura. That's what makes the other people around you uncomfortable. Because it's different and it's one of a kind, unique. So it stands out in a bunch, like a rainbow. You see? That's the coat Joseph's wearing, which made him have the characteristics that he had. His spiritual enlightenment. You see? And so it is with you. And so you're treated harshly because of that. You're cast out because of that. You're ridiculed. You're despitefully used. You're gainsayed against. You're lied on. And you're attacked. But that should let you know that you're in good company. And that should let you know what your end is. And I told you the end of a thing is better than the beginning thereof. So then it's wise that you just dwell in the end, knowing that you're going to be Joseph sitting there. The same people that threw you in a pit, tried to kill you, had plotted on killing you, are going to be standing there with their hands out. That's our story. So it's okay. And that's why you got to be willing to forgive. Once you know the end, you say, oh man, what I'm tripping for? I'm going to have to help these people. So it ain't no need in me harboring no hatred in my heart. No vindictiveness. It ain't going to stop me from sitting in this powerful position I'm sitting in, like Joseph. See? Being in second command to the head. See? And so Yahusha, the same thing. He was murdered unjustly, falsely accused. You see? Hated, name cast out as evil, called a devil, called all kind of names, spat upon, and ultimately murdered up there on the cross and hung up there in a shameful way, naked before the people. And he said, forgive them. So that's for you to also see again. You see what I'm saying? Forgive them. So everything that happens, I had a person tell me this one time, and I'll just share it with you guys. They said, grandson, it's kind of weird. When I do something that's offensive to you or say something out of line or whatever the case may be, I know you're going to forgive me. That's what they said to me. They said, I know you're going to forgive me. Yep. And this same person had did something they thought was very, very hurtful one time. And they came to me and was like, I'm like, I'm going to forgive you. I'm prepared to forgive, man. Before you even ask for it, I'm ready. I'm anticipating you asking so that I can say it. And even if you don't say it, I'm still going to do it. I just want us to be able to share that moment so that you can have the relief you need, where you don't have to feel strange when you're around me and feel second guessing yourself within because you've done something that's injustice. You see? It won't have to be there if you just, by faith, ask for forgiveness, because I'm willing and ready to give it. Because that's all I'm going to give. You see what I'm saying? That's all I'm going to give, because that's all I want from Abba. That's all I got from Abba. It ain't about what I want. That's all he's given me. That's all he's ever given me is his grace, or else I couldn't be sitting here talking to you guys at all. I'd be long gone. But I'm not by his grace. When I laid out on the ground, thought I was all dead and over, thought I was going to die and it was over with. The only thing that's got me sitting here talking to you is his grace. And that's just a fact. So then that's what I give to my brothers automatically. And that's what you learn. I'm just here to bear witness to it and share it with you before it's too late. And you're found wanting. You're found lacking grace. You're found lacking compassion. You don't want to be lacking those things. Those are the things you want to be abundant in, or you want to be rich in. You want your pockets full of compassion, because weren't Joseph's, or were his pockets full of bitterness? What would you say? Were his pockets full of hatred when his brothers came, or were they full of mercy? So then what makes a man rich? You see? And so it was with David. They see the glory with David, but they forgot that David was on the run. Saul trying to kill David unjustly again. Here we go. Same story with all of the elect. It's the same story with all of the elect of the Most High. So if you are truly of the elect, then you are suffering in fashion, so that you may glorify in fashion, which that's your glory. The abundance. The abundance. The what's the word that can describe what I'm trying to say here? The lavish, steady, dependable incoming of all good things that are consistent with mutual benefit and integrity. That's your experience. And once that's your experience, then you can just be. You don't have to worry about how you're going to live, or what you're going to wear, or what you're going to eat. Just like Christ told us. He told us all this. I'm just reminding you. But this is what he told all of us. And I'm just reminding you of what he told us to do, which was to not take thought of this stuff. That'll make you stressed out. That makes you bitter, man. That make you start to hoard things and feel like you got to hang on to things that are just temporary. Things that are just temporary. Your dwelling place is temporary. That's why he says they dwell in tents. A tent represents a temporary dwelling. And the Israelites understood that, and so they dwelt in tents. And we know that we've been enticed to dwell in brick and mortar by our enemy, who feels as though this is some type of permanence he can build here, and has caused us to labor in brick and mortar. That's the point. That's the words Abba used when he says that you were in Egypt laboring in brick and mortar. That means false permanence. Understand spiritually what's going on here. You as an Israelite grew up in a world where you were laboring for a false sense of permanence. That's brick and mortar. Instead of dwelling in a tent and being a plain nation of people, separate from all of this drama, separate from all of this AI and this technology, separate from all of this moving and shaking and business and chase and commerce and all the nonsense that this world is in, their wars, their drama, their hatred, their strife, their racism, their bigotry, their gender wars, their all the nonsense. You are to be separated from that. And once you know the truth of life, then you are separated, because that's what Christ said would happen. He says, once you know the truth, then you're free from the brick and mortar, the false permanence. You're free from it. You understand it's temporal, so you let it go. Now, if somebody try to take something, it's just temporal. You're not even stressing. You're like, I forgive you, man. I know why you did what you did. That's where the heart comes in at. I know why you did it. So that's all that matters, man. And I forgive why you did it. Because I'm a man too. I understand all the whys. All the reasons you can come up with to do what you did. I understand. Why somebody would rob somebody. I understand why. Just because you understand something doesn't mean you condone it or agree with it. It just means you understand. And once you understand, you can forgive. People are afraid of what they don't understand. But once you understand, the fear is gone. You don't have to have fear. Wait a minute. I know that Michael Myers mask nigga standing there looks scary as hell right there in the dark corner. I know he looks scary over there, but he's just a man wearing a Michael Myers outfit for Halloween. That knife he got is rubber. That's the reality of it. He just looked creepy. You feel what I'm saying? So it is with this stuff in this life, man. It just looked like that. It really ain't though. It really isn't. And so since you know that it isn't, you stop having fear. Wait a minute, let me pull the mask off. Oh, that's my friend trying to scare me. Now I'm laughing because that's the reality. And so will you be at the end, laughing. That's what happens when you don't believe something and then it happened. Like Sarah and Abraham found out, and that's why they laughed. See, when you know that, then you're free. I'm going to laugh. Though you sow in tears, you shall reap in what? Come on, Israel. Act like you know the word of our Abba. If you sow in tears, then what will you reap in? Just a three-letter word. Mm-hmm. But it's a beautiful word. Joy. Joy is a beautiful word, isn't it? What it represents. What darkness can you find in joy? In experiencing that. Well, joy comes when you are liberated from punishment. That's when you celebrate. Well, liberation from punishment comes by forgiveness. Mercy is the ultimate precursor from before joy. When mercy is shown, just like Joseph had to give to his brothers, just like Yahushua had to save from that cross, just like Joseph had to do when he cut Saul's garment and then he fell before Saul. It's just always there. It's constantly repeating. So then, these men you have been familiar with, some of you from your childhood up, and others more recently, but David, Yahushua, and Joseph, prominent figures in the Bible, all had to do the same thing. So then, if you are part of that group of prominent people, being the elect, then that means that your life is exactly like theirs. It's not a little bit different or it's a little bit off or no. It's exactly like their life. He's the author and finisher. So he showed you through his life what your life is like. See, when he said it is finished. I forgive you. Now it's done. See? I don't have any of the stuff in my heart anymore. I'm freed of that. I know what I want. Forgiveness, mercy, leniency. Whoo, boy, some grace. That's right. Throw a little bit of that in the pot too when you're cooking my dinner. Okay? That's what I want from my Father. So, what am I actually saying right there? I'm actually giving you some advice. What I'm saying is, if you give to your brother what you desire from Abba, then imagine what you will give your brother. I don't care how silly that may sound to you. I'm more interested in you trying it. and seeing it for yourself, so then you can know the truth and be free from all the other lies that you guys have been under for way too long. Lies like you have to do harm to somebody to feel good. No, you never will. You never will feel good doing harm to another. It's just a lie. You could deceive yourself for a moment, but the truth is going to come rushing back eventually that it was all vain to do hurtful, harmful things to others. Because every time I did a hurtful thing, God is going to give it to me because he's righteous and he's not unfair and he doesn't want his creation to be harmed. He doesn't. Would you want your children to be murdered and massacred without any recompense? Well, then you put a law there then. You would put a law there, whether they would hear it or forbear it. You'd put it there and it would work. Whether a person admitted it or not, it would work. It would be immutable and it would change not, which is you live by the sword, you die by it. So why is y'all keep sending these men over here with these swords to kill? Why you keep doing that? If his commandment says that if you live that way, then you'll die by the same way. So then that ain't true living then, is it? Nope, it ain't. So then I don't carry no sword like that then. I carry the sword he told me to carry. Why is that so hard to be understood? Because it's spiritual and you can't see it with your physical eyes, so you don't think you have no protection. I am protected because I have a sword in my hand right now. See? So if somebody comes to do harm, I just use the sword. And it doesn't have to kill the man physically like your sword does because you're scared of him. I'm not afraid of him. I love him because there's only two feelings I can feel: fear or love for my brother. Well, I choose love. So then I'm going to swing the sword of truth through him, which cuts through the bone and the marrow, penetrate deeper than that bullet.